Okay, so once again, this is American Jurisprudence, the second edition under contracts. This is subsection 1. Okay, definitions. So I really feel like we went through this American Jurisprudence the other day about estoppel. This is a huge book. It's got a lot of information, but I really feel like everything operates and revolves around the contract, man. And if you do not have a contract with these people and you have not signed your life away and you didn't do it in full disclosure, then it should be voidable. So let's look and see what is it. You can see, man, we got a lot of this stuff open here, so we're not going to go through all of this. Some of these are only like, one paragraph. But let's look at this, man. What is a contract? So a contract has been defined as an agreement to do or refrain from doing a particular thing. And just for the record, these 1, 2, 3s that you see, all these little numbers below here is, once again, this is where they're getting it from. Okay? So this is Sims versus Bayside. Okay? Gomes versus Hamid. Okay, McCraw versus Llewellyn. Okay, so if you see those numbers, don't trip. So they're basically pulling all of this information out of case law. Okay, so you can pretty much bet the farm on it. Okay, so again, the contract has been defined as agreement to do or refrain from doing a particular thing upon a sufficient consideration. Okay, now that is a awesome word because that's something you never get. Okay, terms and conditions, you get to look at the contract, you need to scribble out some stuff, you need to add some stuff, whatever. You never get that. Okay, so consideration makes the contract also. If you're not able to consider and look at the contract, look at the terms and condition, the meeting of the minds, two parties, right, then it's not really, if you can't consider your options, then it's kind of a forced contract. Okay, it's a bill of attainder, and this is what they're doing to us. So sufficient consideration. Similarly, a contract has been defined as an agreement, obligation, or legal tie by which a party binds itself or becomes bound expressly or impliedly. Okay, so this is your assumptions and presumptions. To pay a sum of money or to perform or admit to do some certain act or thing. Also, a contract has been defined as a private, voluntary allocation by which two or more parties distribute specific entitlements, right? Child support entitlements, right? That's where they say that the best interest of the child is involved, and it's all BS, and we know that. And obligations. A contract is an agreement between two or more parties that creates obligations that are legally enforceable by the contracting parties, right? So, yeah, that sounds like child support. A contract is an agreement between two or more parties creating obligations that are enforceable or otherwise recognizable at law. A contract is an agreement by two or more parties whereby obligations are created, modified, or extinguished. Okay? A contract is an obligation which arises from actual agreement of the parties manifested by words, oral or written, or by conduct. The term contract has been held to include every description or agreement or obligation, whether verbal or written, by which one party becomes bound to another to pay a sum of money or to perform or admit to do a certain act. Okay? So does that sound like they have a contract with you? Okay. Well, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see the contract. I'd like to see the piece of paper I signed for your services. That's what I'd like to see. The restatement defines the term contract as a promise or a set of promises for the breach of which the law gives a remedy. Okay, so you do have a remedy, just got to find it. Or the performance of which the law in some way recognizes as a duty, and this definition has been adopted by some courts. However, this has been criticized as a circular definition. It is the same thing as saying that a contract is legally enforceable, that a contract is a legally enforceable promise, but a promise is legally enforceable only if it is a contract. So it is the same as saying that a contract is a legally enforceable promise. Did you promise anything? I didn't. But a promise is legally enforceable only if it is a contract. Well, okay, let's see the contract. A contract is not a law, nor does it make law. It is the agreement plus the law that makes the ordinary contract enforceable. Okay? And then it goes into all this stuff. The following types of contracts are subject in some respects to special rules that depend on their formal characteristics and differ from those governing contracts in general. Okay? So you have contracts under seal. You have recognizance contracts, which is basically your OR. When you get out on OR, when you're released on your own recognizance, okay, that's your signature bond right there, okay? And this is a negotiable instrument or documents saying, okay, I'm going to pay you a certain sum of money, but you can't really pay, so you give them a negotiable instrument, okay? Letters of credit, okay, that would be when you're dealing with the banks and you go in and you sign a credit application and your signature creates the money and then they loan you your fucking money at interest. When used in its ordinary sense, the term contract implies enforceable obligations. Do you have an obligation? Well, if you do, then where's the contract I signed? That implies that I have an obligation to you. However, in popular speech, the word contract is frequently used as meaning the work done under a contract. A contract is a verbal act that has a legal reality, independent of the truth of any statement contained in it. The right to perform a contract and receive its profits and the right to performance by the other party are property rights, entitling each party to the fulfillment of the contract by performance. Under the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act, the term contract means the total legal obligation resulting from the parties' agreement as affected by the act and other applicable law. The term contract has a more specific and extended meaning than the terms promise or agreement. Okay? The existence of a contract is a question of fact. Tallies or receipts and invoices are generally not contracts. Okay? So just because you get an invoice, okay, or a statement of account from child support does not mean that there is a lawful contract.